Hello and welcome to episode 79 of my podcast all about knitting and crochet in my yarn shop here in Wiesbaden, Germany. I'm Kiko and today is January 11th, 2021. Today I'm wearing two rather unusual things in a way. The first one is a little cowl, and if you look at the pattern, you might be reminded of the wrist warmers that I wore last week, that I showed as a finished object last week. And when I was first playing around with this pattern and coming up with the pattern for the wrist warmers, I also knit this Mobius cowl. So this is a Mobius, which is started in the middle, and then you knit in both directions at the same time with the like folding over thing. I don't know how to explain it, but I'm pretty sure most of you know what a Mobius is. And there is a very clever cast on for this that was, I think, invented by Kat Bordy, and that's what I used. And so it's the same like shell-like pattern with the increases and the yarn overs, decreases and yarn overs that make this pattern. And because all the knit stitches are knit through the back loop, the lines are a bit tighter than on the other side. So the wrong side of both the mittens and this part of the cowl, the stitches look different, and that's how you can tell that I was knitting from the inside out in both directions at the same time, because what happens is that this side was knit on that side, so the right side is showing here, but on the bottom half this is the wrong side showing. So this side has this exact same pattern, but this is like the wrong side, and you can't really tell very clearly with this pattern, but I still wanted to try out how it works. The number of stitches I used is quite okay to wear it around the neck once, but I wasn't too happy with the way things fold over here, so I didn't really pursue it as a pattern. But I still have it, so I thought it'd be fun to wear, and it has sort of the same colors as this vest. I thought it might be fun to wear it today and show you. So I'll put it back on in a minute. I'll just show you this vest kind of thing first. I think this is the first pattern from Vogue Knitting that I ever knit, and I'm holding it closed just with a needle like this. And I didn't really use a pattern when I knit this because I had seen a picture online and I didn't know how to get the pattern, but it's a very simple thing, so I just knit it from the picture, and basically it's just a rectangle with two holes. And if you look at the wrong side, I hope you could see the cable there. So basically I had this really big chunky yarn that's very colorful, and I just cast on a certain number of stitches, and then one panel was knit in stockinette stitch, and this is reverse stockinette stitch, and the last part is stockinette stitch again. So of course on the other side it comes out exactly the opposite, and then after a while I just cast off the middle third and then cast it on again, and then I did this big cable in the middle, and then just finish it the same way on the other side. And I think one of the changes that I made from the original pattern is that the original had only one cable, like cabling half the stitches with the other half, and I thought that was just too big and too weird, and so I decided to do the two cables with a third of the stitches, and then I crocheted around the edges. I'm not quite sure whether that was in the pattern. The funny thing is that later I actually did buy the magazine with this vest in it, so that was quite funny, but I never really checked the pattern. I just because I'd already finished knitting that, and I didn't want to knit another one, but I still like it, and it's really nice and warm, and it's quite soft. So that's what I'm wearing today. Let's see if I can put this on. I find it always a bit difficult to sort of get this bit organized. One way of wearing it is just to push this to the back, and then if I pull the lower bit down a little bit, it's the same pattern twice, so that's quite nice. And it's a little bit too tight as well, I think. I think that's because of the turning round thing happening. I probably should have cast on more stitches, and maybe if it was a bit more loose, it'd be easier to wear it as well. But anyway, I have it, so why not wear it? Yeah, as long as it's not too tight. I was a bit afraid while I was knitting it would be too tight, but I think it's okay. It's not too tight. Yeah, it's just difficult to wear. Anyway, so that's what I'm wearing today. On to finished objects. I had so many finished objects last week, so it was clear there wouldn't be that many this week, but I have one finished object for today, and it's a big one. And it's my grey and black cardigan. So I actually finished it. I was still knitting on this shawl collar last week. I think I'll stand up again just to show you the whole thing. So this is what it looks like. Yeah, so I think I ended up knitting 3 more rows on the shawl collar. I weighed my yarn before I started the row, then I knit the row and I weighed my yarn again. So I knew I had enough yarn to do 3 rows and then cast off, otherwise I would have cast off straight away. And I'm really happy with the width of the shawl collar, so if it's folded over, it sits on my neck really nicely. I can open them up like this, and I could put a needle or something in here and have it like a closed cardigan. And yeah, and it's quite simple for me. I don't very often knit in one color without a pattern, but I think, and I did weave in all the ends. There were loads and loads and loads of ends hanging on the inside. So if you look closely, you can see that's how I weave in my ends. I usually go up and down in a zigzag like that, and like here. Yeah, but it only shows on the inside. If you look on the outside of the cardigan, it shouldn't show at all. I didn't get round to washing it, so it's not washed. I won't block it. I'll just lay it flat to dry, but I think the stitches will even out a little bit more after I've washed it. So, and anyway, I don't like to wear yarn that hasn't been washed, so it'll definitely get washed before I wear it. And then at some point I'll wear it as in the podcast, so you can see what it looks like on me. Yeah, but it has to be washed before I do that. So that's the only finished object I have for today. I have quite a few works in progress that I did work on. I have several others that I did not work on, so I won't show them today. And I have 2 new cast-ons. And I know that I failed miserably with my intentions of only casting on something if I finish 2 pieces. So it's the wrong way around this week. I finished 1 thing and I started 2. But as usual, I have good reasons, good excuses why I started them. And I'll show you in a minute. Oops, let me just get this done. Okay. I'll start off with my socks as usual. And I continued knitting on these stained glass socks from the book Operation Sock Drawer, and I finished the cuff of the sock. I'll show you the first one again. So this is the first sock, and so the cuff is basically the same, even the way the colors come out looks really quite similar. And then I'll knit the same heel, but with the foot portion I wanted to change things up. So instead of having the really long floats down the sole of the foot, I want to knit some sort of pattern here so that the yarn gets distributed differently and maybe the colors will come out differently. I don't know yet, but that's what I'm going for. So didn't do too much on that, but I was quite happy to get to the point where I start the heel. That'll take a bit of concentration to make sure it's the same as the first one. So I'll have to check the book and the first sock at the same time. And so I need a bit of concentration for that. I hope I get a chance to do that this week. And then the other sock that I knit on that you already know is the Longitudinal Sock by Nicolor out of this Opal subscription yarn. And I finished, I think, half the sock. This is about half the sock. So this is, as you can see, it's knit sideways, and you start off with Judy's Magic cast on here, which doesn't show, which I like, and then you just go to and fro, and then this is the top of the foot, and this, as you can see, are the increases for the heel. I finished the increases and I've done several rows straight, and the same goes for the toe. So you knit increases for the toe, and then this bit is straight. And so I'm not exactly sure if I have knit half the straight rows, might be one or two less, I don't know. But once I finish those rows that have no increases, then I will start decreasing. So I will decrease on the toe, and I will also decrease for the second half of the heel. And once I finish the decreases, then I can Kitchener it together, and then the first sock will be done. And at first, when I started knitting, I had the feeling they wouldn't come out quite as big as planned, but now I can see that they really are quite big, which I wanted them to be. Right now, I'm a little bit worried that the yarn will not be enough because, as I said, I think this is about half the sock, but I already used more than 25 grams of yarn. So I weighed my yarn yesterday, and I think I've already used 27 grams of yarn. But if it's not enough, then I would just add some single color yarn to the second sock, either the blue or a green. I'll see which color I have that is closest to these colors, and then I'll just use something to finish the sock off. Yeah. So that's the second sock I knit on. That's the only two socks I knit on. So 3 pairs of socks didn't get any work done, but that's to be expected if you have 5 pairs of socks at the same time. And now we'll come to the first new cast on that I knit, and I wanted to mention it last week, but I forgot about it. And the reason I had to cast this on is because it's a test knit. And it's a test knit for a pair of slippers. And this is what the first one looks like. And this is a really interesting stitch pattern. And when I saw that, I just knew I wanted to try that. So I signed up for the test knit, not last weekend, but the weekend before. But I couldn't start because I didn't have the right yarn at home. And then when I got here last Monday, I completely forgot about it. Otherwise, I could have picked the yarn and probably not started, but I could have shown you the yarn and told you that I was going to test knit something. But I forgot about it, so I only picked up the yarn on Tuesday and started knitting on Tuesday. I finished the first one. It's a bit small for me. It's supposed to be my size, but it's a bit too small. One of the things I changed is that down here where you finish the slipper, I knit half a round less than I was supposed to, so I could graft it better. And with the second one, I'll try and make it just a bit longer. So either 1.5 rounds more, or maybe even half a round, 2.5 rounds. I don't know. I'll try and knit it a bit longer and see whether it fits better. I've started the second one. So this is all I have so far. It started up here and then you knit down. So you do increases, and at a certain point it's there enough stitches to knit with a small circular needle. That's what I did with this one, and I'll do with the second one. But the best thing about these are really this funny stitch pattern. I think she calls it strawberry stitch. There's a Ravelry project page on my Ravelry site. So, and I've already linked to the pattern, but you will only be able to see the link once the pattern is released. So, but as soon as the pattern is released, the link will appear on my project page, and then you can go and get yourself the pattern if you're interested. I really like them. Oh, and by the way, I'm using another Opal subscription yarn, but this color also came out as part of the Shafpatensocken series, and I'm using the yarn held doubled, so the colors come out a bit different than they would if you had the yarn by itself. And I'm knitting on 3.5 millimeter needle, the way it says in the pattern, and I did get gauge, so that was good. Yeah. And the second new cast on, it's not a sock, but I'm knitting on double pointed needles, so I'll include it in this section of my podcast. And that I started because I was meeting with a young friend of mine, and she wanted to knit a stuffed animal, and she picked a little pig to knit. And I decided to join her, because if I knit the same thing, then I can see whether things might get difficult, or if she has questions, I can just show her on my knitting, and then she can learn how to do that. So she's further on with hers. She already finished the body of the pig, and she already also knit one of the ears. Maybe by now she'll even have both of the ears, I don't know. So I haven't got very far. I finished the head. You start with the head. This is the nose. I glued on the eyes this morning. She sewed the eyes on because she wants to give it to a little baby in the family. So then you have to sew them on, or you have to have safety eyes. I am pretty sure I'm going to keep this in my shop, so it's okay with eyes that are glued on. But I wanted them on because it just shows where the face is, and everything just looks so much sweeter once you put the eyes on. Yeah, so I have to finish the body. The pattern is from a German knitting magazine called Knit the Cat. I know the title doesn't sound very German, but it's a German magazine. But you can also buy the pattern for this piglet on Ravelry. It's linked in my project page, and I think it's a lot of fun. Yeah, and the pattern is I like the way she writes her patterns, because you knit everything together and you don't have to sew anything. So I first knit the head. It started here, and you finish at the nose, and then you pick up stitches down here and you knit the body. And as you can see, it really looks seamless, and you can't really tell where one piece goes into the next. And the purl stitches that you see here, that's where the arms will go. And the purl stitches here tell you where the ear is knit on, where you pick up the stitches for the ear. So it's really cleverly done. And yeah, and I've wanted to knit one of her patterns for a long time, and now I finally got round to doing that. So this is my piglet. Yeah, that's all the new cast-ons. No more new cast-ons for today. So what else have I got? I continued knitting on the Hitchhiker shawl by Martina Behm. Not quite sure how many of the spiky things I had last week. I think now I'm at 24. If you follow the pattern and use the same yarn, you're supposed to knit 42, but because I'm using a DK weight yarn, Schafpatensocken again, I don't think I'll be able to knit 42 with one ball of yarn, but I'll see how far I get, and then I'll just cast off when the yarn's almost gone. Yep, really happy with that. Just an easy going project that I just pick up every now and then. Yeah, like the colors, like the way the stripes keep changing. Yeah, don't always take the time to watch it because it's such an easy knit. I don't really look at it while I knit. So it's quite nice to hold it up every now and then to see how it comes along. So that's the Hitchhiker. Then I have 3 crochet projects that I worked on. I'll start with the new shawl that I showed you last week. It's this virus shawl, and basically it's just a chart. So even if you don't know any German, you could just download the chart and start crocheting. I added 1 pattern repeat, so not too much, but yeah, I enjoy crocheting on it, and I'll probably keep going slowly. And but I already had another color change, so it felt like a really long time for the first color change to appear. So I had to go all the way from here to here for the first color change, and then I think like 3 rows later I had the second color change. So it changed. At first it changed from all 4 strands of yarn being the light color to 3 light and 1 darker, and now it's 2 light and 2 that are a bit darker. So this is what my yarn cake looks like. So there's a bit more light to go, and then it'll probably change completely to the slightly darker one, and then the even darker will start showing up. And when I stopped crocheting my row, I put in a stitch marker, and probably all of you know about that, but when I started knitting and crocheting years and years ago, we didn't have stitch markers and we got along fine without them. But now that I know about them, I just love them and I use them for everything. But one of the things I really like about them is if you have those that you can open and close, you just put it on your last stitch, on the stitch that you crochet with, and then nothing can happen, because I've had it happen so many times that I put my crochet into the bag and I pull it out and I pull on the wrong end or on the wrong side of the yarn, and I just undo like a dozen stitches, and just putting the stitch marker in really helps that. Just wanted to mention that. So that was one crochet project. Then I continued on my Carnaby crochet along, the bring color to the bad weather jumper, and as I showed you last week, I had sewn together all the pieces for the front and back, and then as I said, I crocheted around the front and back. I think the pattern says to do 2 rows, and I did 3 rows because I just wanted it that bit bigger. And then I added another 2 rows, I think, on the shoulders because the neckline was just too small. I couldn't fit my head through, so I added a few more rows. I crocheted the back and front the same. So this is supposed to be the front and this is supposed to be the back, but because I did the neckline exactly the same, I can wear it any way I like, and I feel like this is wide enough now. It's not too wide, but I think it's quite okay. So from the pattern, what you could do is, once you have attached the 2 pieces, if you want it even bigger, you could now go round in rounds and add even more rows width-wise. Yeah, I'll have to try it on and measure it, and maybe I will do that, maybe I won't. But the next thing I will do is crochet around the sleeves a little bit. You're not supposed to do that, but then you were supposed to crochet really wide sleeves that I didn't want to have. So they turned out a bit too narrow, so I'll just add a bit of black to the sides of the sleeves and maybe to the top, so I can go in rows to and fro. I'll have to see. I'll see what I do. I'll do something to make them a bit wider, then I'll have to sew them on. And once I've sewn the sleeves on, I can seam the sides of the sleeves and the fronts and back. And then I should be almost done. I'm supposed to crochet 1 round of single crochet in the neckline. I might do that, I might not do that. I'm not too sure yet. I'll see about that. Yeah, but I am making progress and I'm really, really happy about that because I really do want to wear this jumper while it's still cold and dark and grey and everything. Yeah, so that's good. And then the third crochet project that I put work into is the cat blanket. So last week I hadn't worked on it and I was still working on bringing the zombie cats to life. If you want to know what a zombie cat is, you have to go back a few episodes and look at the crocheted cat squares that I crocheted. And when I added the white eyes but without the black in them, they look like zombie cats. And then so the last step of finishing one of the squares was crocheting the nose, sewing on the nose, stitching the mouth, and then stitching the pupils in the eyes. And to me, this that brought them to life. So I finished all the faces of the cats. I laid them out together with my sister. We decided on an order how to put them. And I've started sewing the squares together. So there were squares with cats and without cats. And in the pattern, they're not organized like how do you say that? It's not always no cat, no cat, the way it looks up here, but then things get mixed up and these are all cats, these are no cats. And I did not follow the pattern because the pattern has fewer squares anyway, so I had to make up my own order. So this cat is sleeping, as you can see. One of the cats has no eyes because she sits with the back to us. I think she's not here yet. And all the other cats, look different ways. And they all have different colors. So there's no 2 cats that are exactly the same. And this is the whole length of the blanket. So, yeah, it's like a head smaller than me. And these are 3 rows that I've sewn together, and there's 2 more rows to come. So that's 14 more squares that I have to sew on. They're still lying in my sister's room, so the order doesn't get mixed up, and I'll just have to sit down and sew them on. And once I've sewn all the squares together, I will crochet a border around it. So that's part of the pattern as well. And the pattern calls for, I think, 4 or 5 rounds of crochet around the whole blanket, and every round is knit in a different color. So I haven't decided yet which of the colors I want to use for the border. I've already made several plans, and I have several pictures on my phone showing different color combinations that I may put around the blanket. But I think once I've sewn everything together, I'll just put it down, and then I'll sit down with my different colors and play around a bit, and then come up with the order and the color choices the colors I want to use for the border. And then finally, someday, this blanket will be finished. Yeah, but I'm really happy with the progress I made and that I finally finished all the faces. That seemed like a lot of work. So that was all the crochet, and that brings us to the knit-alongs I'm hosting. And the first knit-along that we've been working on for quite a while is all the patterns of the Simple Collection by Tin Can Knits. And I am knitting the flax pullover, and I'm using opal sock yarn with glitter, held double, and I have almost finished the first sleeve. So I knit quite a bit straight because the sleeve wasn't very wide and I wanted it fairly loose, so I knit straight for quite a bit. I knit straight up to here, and then I started decreasing, and now I've started knitting the ribbing, and it's almost long enough. I just took a photograph this morning, and I'll post it on Ravelry. Maybe I have already done it, I don't know. I'll post it to Ravelry, and you can see that the sleeve is like up to here. So it needs a few more rounds to be long enough. And I am thinking of making it like too long, and maybe even knit a hole for the thumb, so that if I put my thumb in, the sleeve's going to stay there, like if I put on my jacket or something. And if I'm inside, then I can fold it over. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about at the moment. But as this is the first sleeve, I'm still making all these decisions and thinking about it. And sometimes it feels like I'm trying it on every 2 rounds. But yeah, so sometimes it feels like a lot of work doing that. But on the other hand, that's how I make sure that it's really going to fit the way I want it to fit. And then with the second sleeve, I can just zoom along and I know how things are supposed to go. So that's the flax pullover. And then the second knit along I'm hosting is for the Optic blanket by Pearl Soho. And I showed you the first 5 squares last week, and I decided to knit 1 square every week. So this was last week's square, and I have added this one. So this is just a grey square, different greys. So it's fairly quiet. Can you say quiet? Well, it's not boring. I don't think it's boring, even though it's grey. And it just makes a nice contrast to all the other squares that I have so far. And yeah, I like it. I'm really happy with how it's coming out. If you've seen the original, that's just 2 colors, which looks really nice and elegant as well. But I just love using many colors, and I have so many leftover DK weight sock yarn that I want to use in this blanket, and yeah, that's what I'm doing. So I'm still planning on doing 18 squares that are all together, and then I'll do another 18 and another 18, and then I'll seam those 3 pieces together, so I don't have the whole blanket on my lap and turning it round and round and round while I knit. I still think that's a good idea. But we'll see. Maybe I'll make the pieces even smaller and do more pieces. I don't know yet. But I'm still enjoying knitting the blanket. And I hope a lot of you are knitting with me, and be nice if you wanted to post pictures in the Ravelry group. I would really enjoy seeing your blankets grow. Yeah, so that's everything I knit and crocheted last week. I hope you enjoyed seeing the progress, and I will see you in the next one. Bye! I forgot something. I'll add it now, so bye again. Don't forget the coupon code that's still that you can still use for all of Deb Milstein's designs. So the coupon code will be underneath the video. It was underneath the last 2 videos as well. So please have a look at her designs, and if you like any of them, use the coupon code to get 20% off. So the coupon code is Kikos Knitting Podcast 20, I think, but it'll be underneath the video. Have a look there. You can copy it from there and use it and get some new patterns for 20% off. Okay, now I'll see you next week.